Lyra thought I was acting super weird today. Usually, when I saw her, I'd turn and walk the other way. I'd never willingly approach her. Yet today, I actually offered her cotton candy, and even brought her home. She slowly turned her head, scanning the room. She really liked it here. Normally, when she was being beaten, she would huddle by her door and listen to the chaotic symphony of my household across the hall. Auntie Evelyn yelling at me talking back, the loud TV playing in the background. But Auntie's yelling sounded completely different from the violent screaming in her own house. Lyra always saw the chubby kid across the hall getting piggybacked home by his dad, even though he was already so big. His mom would buy him watermelon in the summer, and roasted sweet potatoes in the winter. She'd be scolding him the whole time, but she'd still buy him whatever he wanted. He also had tons of friends at school. Everyone loved him. Honestly, she liked him too. She remembered that when they were really little, he had shared candy with her and held her hand to go play in the snow. But later, after her mom left, everything changed. He and she, a filthy bug from the gutters, were suddenly living in two completely separate worlds. He was just so incredibly happy. So happy that just looking at him made her feel warm. She couldn't help but fantasize, if only she could be a part of their family, too. She had never in her wildest dreams imagined she'd actually be brought into their home. Thinking of this, Lyra looked at me and whispered into the dark, "Brother." She extended a tiny, scar-covered finger. She wanted to poke my chubby, pale cheek, but then, as if realizing how dirty she was, she pulled back. In the end, she only dared to gently poke my soft stomach through my shirt. That squishy texture finally brought out a hint of a genuinely playful, childlike smile on her face. Then, just as she was about to lie back down, I suddenly rolled over. My arms and legs flopped down, pinning Lyra entirely underneath me. At this age, I was a genuinely hefty little butterball. The weight of my limbs crushing her was no joke. Lyra could barely breathe. The wounds on her back screamed in pain from the pressure, but she absolutely refused to move, terrified that a single twitch would wake me up. Just as her face was turning beet red from holding her breath, the sleeping me suddenly wrapped my arms around her tightly, squeezing her like a giant, comfortable bolster pillow. Lyra was stunned. The last time she had been held like this while sleeping was when her mom was still around. Slowly, she rested her little head against my chest. In her heart, she whispered, "Good night, brother." This felt a bit like the story her mom used to read to her, The Little Match Girl. Even though this warmth might be agonizingly temporary, she still wanted to soak up as much of it as possible. The next morning, I was violently jolted awake by my mom slapping my behind. "Kaylin, do you have a death wish? You flattened your sister like a pancake." I snapped my eyes open with an "ah!" only to see my mom preciously cradling Lyra in her arms. I was still completely disoriented, having no clue what just happened. Then I heard Lyra earnestly explaining, "It's okay, Auntie Evelyn. Brother was probably just worried I'd be cold." I let out a loud, "Huh? But it's the middle of summer vacation. It's pushing 100 degrees out here every single day." Then it clicked. Last night, I seemed to have been hugging an incredibly comfortable body pillow, my face contorted in sheer horror. That pillow wasn't Lyra, was it? Standing at the door, my dad casually reminded, "Check Lyra's wounds and see if they've been rubbed raw." Great. Now it was confirmed. The body pillow was indeed Lyra. I watched my mom lift Lyra's shirt to check her back, but not before shooting me a lethal glare. I constantly felt like ever since Lyra arrived, my status in this family had plummeted to absolute zero. Still, I leaned over to take a peek. Thank God the wounds hadn't really been agitated. I breathed a sigh of relief, then, trying to sound tough, I scolded her. "Don't you know how to wake me up or push me away?" To my surprise, she just gave me a sickeningly sweet smile. But with brother hugging me to sleep, I didn't have any nightmares. "Thank you, brother." Hearing this, I completely froze. Wait a minute, the little psycho was actually kind of illegally adorable when she was young. Even a macho man like me couldn't resist this. Who wouldn't want a little sister like this? So how the heck did she mutate into a monster later on? The next day, after breakfast, my mom and dad took Lyra out shopping. Meanwhile, I was left behind in house arrest to catch up on my summer homework. When the three of them returned at noon, Lyra was already decked out in brand new clothes. Her hair had been neatly trimmed. She scurried over to me and shoved a piece of candy into my hand. Whispering, she said, "Brother, I secretly saved this for you. Auntie Evelyn and the others don't know." After speaking, those massive shining doe eyes just locked onto me. I looked at the absolute hope and expectation in the little girl's eyes. Damn it, macho man's heart equals melted. I glanced at my parents, who were in the bedroom debating how to assemble the new bunk bed. I took the milky candy from her hand, ripped open the wrapper, and swiftly popped it right into Lyra's mouth. I let out a soft humph. Kids like eating this stuff. Apparently, the crinkling of the wrapper was too loud. My mom whipped her head around and glared at me. "Kaylin, are you sneaking candy again? Do you want all your teeth to rot and fall out?" Saying that, she marched over menacingly, but Lyra instantly jumped in front of me, acting as a human shield. Mumbling around the candy, she said, "Auntie Evelyn, it wasn't brother, it was me." My mom stopped in her tracks, startled. Then, she looked at me with an expression of pure shock. "My boy has grown up, he's giving up candy!" I looked at my mom's shocked expression, feeling incredibly exasperated. I just don't like candy anymore. I'm not a toddler. Beside me, Lyra nodded her head in the most adorable way possible. Brother is very good. He didn't eat it. Hearing this, I shot a complex look at the excessively cute little future psycho. The following days followed the exact same pattern. The two of us sharing a room morphed into being bunk bed roommates. I remained locked in the house by my mom to grind through my homework. During these days home alone together, Lyra basically did whatever I told her to do, without a single question asked. If my mom came home and checked my unfinished homework, I didn't even have to scramble for an excuse. Lyra would jump right in front of me and start running defense. The opening line was always, "Auntie Evelyn, it's all my fault." Every time she pulled this routine, my mom's heart would melt into a puddle. How could she possibly scold her? But honestly, I felt like even though she was young, the level of manipulation and fake innocence was a bit too advanced. I wasn't entirely sure. I needed to observe her more. However, spending every waking moment together, I definitely didn't have the same PTSD reaction to Lyra as I did when I first traveled back in time, because she was just too well behaved. And, okay, a little cute. In the blink of an eye, the new school semester was upon us. On the first day, Dad was the one who escorted us. He warned me over and over, "Lyra's wounds have just healed. You make sure you protect her." But Lyra spoke up with utmost seriousness. "Uncle Arthur, I will protect brother." To be perfectly honest, at first, I thought she was just habitually playing the good girl card. I had no idea she was being dead serious. When it came to fighting with other kids, she really was the type to pick up a brick and aim straight for the skull. But that incident takes us to when we entered our new classroom. We were in grade 3, class 1. Our elementary school kept the same classes together from first grade all the way up. I noticed that Lyra, who usually loved sticking to me like glue, slowed her pace as soon as we entered the school gates. She chose to trail a fair distance behind me. I intentionally slowed my pace, but she refused to catch up. I had a pretty good guess as to why. She was trying to keep her distance so I wouldn't get dragged down by her reputation. And so we walked into the classroom one after the other. I had barely reached my seat when a voice dripping with disgust rang out nearby. "You can't sit here, little beggars belong in the trash pile." Lyra's brand new backpack was shoved forcefully onto the floor by the girl standing opposite her. Lyra stood beside the seat next to mine. Her head was bowed, making it impossible to read her expression. I couldn't help but frown. Today, Lyra looked incredibly pretty. She was wearing a brand new little dress my mom bought her. Her hair was tied up perfectly neat. Her delicate, exquisite features made her look like a porcelain doll. Yet they were still calling her a little beggar. Seeing this, a fire ignited in my chest. Lyra heard the snickering of the other students. She stared at her backpack tossed onto the dirty floor. The new backpack was pink. It had a little cartoon sheep on it. When she first saw it in the store, she fell in love with it immediately. But then she saw the price tag, $56. That was astronomically expensive to her. So when she went to the supermarket with me, she just stole a few glances and forced herself to look away. But last night, after dinner, Auntie Evelyn and I went out for a bit and came back holding this exact backpack. She treated it like her most prized treasure, and now someone had just thrown it on the floor. Everyone called her dirty. Lyra's eyes turned red. A flash of pure ruthlessness flickered in her gaze. Suddenly, a pale, chubby hand reached down and picked the backpack up, dusting it off gently. "Bryony, don't cross the line. This backpack is brand new, and you just chuck it on the floor? Plus, this is an empty seat." Bryony clearly never expected anyone to stand up for Lyra. Her eyes went wide as saucers. "What do you mean, brand new? Where would she get the money for that? She probably stole it." I had never paid attention to this before, but it turns out kids this age can be unfathomably malicious, opening their mouths to call a 7 or 8-year-old child a thief. "Zip it. My parents bought this for her. The dress and the backpack. The shoes, too. You got a problem with that?" I positioned myself squarely in front of Lyra. I placed the backpack on the seat she wanted, and said softly, "Lyra, take a seat. Nobody's sitting here." The little girl shot me a timid glance. Her eyes were rimmed with red. My heart ached fiercely. How much trauma did this adorable girl have to endure to turn into the monster she became later? How many times had scenes like this played out since she was a baby? "What's going on here? Class is starting. Find your seats and sit down immediately." At that moment, the homeroom teacher, Mr. Thunder, shouted sternly. Students are terrified of teachers. In an instant, the crowd scattered like frightened mice. Lyra glanced at me standing beside her. I was still planted firmly by her side, like a loyal knight. When she was really little, she had a knight too. It took the form of her mother's embraces. But then her mother left. She had fantasized about so many people coming to protect her. But all those people in her imagination were faceless. Until today, they didn't have a face. But from today onward, they did. It was her brother's face. Sensing her gaze, I looked down at her. "Sit down and relax." After saying that, I returned to my own seat. Lyra pursed her lips and let out a secret, tiny smile. This was the very first time anyone at school had ever protected her. The first day of school was mostly introductory nonsense anyway. I spent the entire day fighting off a massive food coma. Thankfully, besides the little morning skirmish, the rest of the day was drama-free. Well, not entirely. Because I defended Lyra, a faction of the class seemed to be soft boycotting me. There were also kids, like Lyra's desk mate, who wanted to be friends with her now. But she just kept a frosty expression and ignored everyone. However, she was a completely different species when facing me. Soft, squishy, obedient. Whatever I said was law. Psychologically speaking, it felt pretty damn good. Still, I couldn't help but shoot a glance at the girl. You need to make some friends at school, you know. They want to be friends with you now. But some of them bullied me before. Lyra, wearing her backpack, trailed behind me, her voice soft and sticky like mochi. Before I could even formulate a response, several boys materialized out of nowhere and violently shoved me from behind. I couldn't help but yell, "Son of a biscuit!" I crashed hard into the entrance of an alleyway. White-hot pain flared in my knees and the palms of my hands where I broke my fall. Definitely scraped off a good layer of skin. One of the boys stood there, looking outrageously smug. "That's what you get for hanging out with Lyra. You're both just dirty little beggars. God damn it, demon children." I gritted my teeth, fully prepared to stand up and throw hands. But when I lifted my head, my eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets. Lyra! She was holding half a solid brick she had found heaven knows where. With the sharp, jagged edge pointed straight down, she viciously slammed it into the boy's leg. Seeing this, I scrambled off the pavement in a pure panic. I lunged forward and bear-hugged Lyra from behind. But the brick still made contact with the boy's leg. The kid let out a blood-curdling screech and started bawling. The other two boys were completely paralyzed by this sudden escalation. They didn't dare twitch a muscle. Lyra was too skinny. She couldn't break free from my grip. So in a terrifying pivot, she aggressively yeeted the brick out of her hand. Bam! It nailed the second boy right in the foot. The second kid instantly joined the crying choir. I locked my arms around the struggling Lyra with an iron grip. I sternly barked, "Lyra, do you want to get expelled?" Hearing this, she finally stopped thrashing. Then I turned and roared at the three little brats. "Keep crying and I'll go straight to the teachers. I'll tell them you guys gang assaulted me." My voice boomed. The boys instantly choked back their tears, terrified. With the hostile threats neutralized, I turned to the Lyra still in my arms and put on my most ferocious face. "When I let go, you are not allowed to move. Otherwise, I'm telling my mom on you." She immediately went docile. But the glare she shot the boys was still burning with violent resentment. They had dared to bully Kaylin just now. She would get revenge for him. If not today, then next time. Eventually, the three little boys scurried away, eyes red from crying. I stepped in front of Lyra. My tone was icy. "If I hadn't stopped you, what were you planning to do?" "So they bullied you," Lyra whispered softly. I took a deep breath. I was just about to open my mouth to comfort her when I noticed her hand was trembling slightly. I quickly grabbed her hand, only to see a deep bloody gash sliced across her palm. It was still oozing blood. "Are you serious? You're bleeding and you didn't even say a word?" My tone was a bit harsh. Hearing it, she flinched by pure reflex. Then she whispered an apology. "I'm sorry." I grabbed Lyra by the wrist and marched forward. My voice remained frosty. "From now on, no smashing people with bricks. If you actually seriously injured them with that hit, what would you do? Drop out of school? What if they called your dad in? Then what?" Lyra remained dead silent. She just stared at my hand holding hers. Honestly, it didn't hurt her at all. In fact, being pulled along by me like this, she felt incredibly happy. Seeing that she hadn't responded for a while, I turned my head to look at her. "Did you hear me?" Lyra obediently nodded her head. "I heard you, brother." Anyway, she didn't need a brick. There were plenty of other weapons. After we took the bus home, we were the only ones there. I had to play nurse and treat her wound myself. I looked at the little girl in front of me, my tone turning serious but gentle. "Don't be so impulsive from now on. You have to protect yourself first. Like today, they were too stunned to fight back. But otherwise, who could you possibly beat in a fight?" But Lyra lifted her head and looked at me with dead seriousness. "It doesn't matter if they bully me. I can endure it. But they are not allowed to bully you." She reached out with her uninjured hand and tightly gripped mine. "Brother, I will protect you." Hearing this, I was stunned. A warm wave washed over my heart. "Little sister, I will protect you too." This semester, Lyra's image underwent a complete overhaul. Although she was still cold and distant, she gradually accumulated a few friends, both girls and even some little boys. At this moment, I was slumped over my desk, reminiscing about everything regarding Lyra from my past life. The Lyra in my memories was silent, a bit unkempt, and constantly exuded a gloomy aura, but her grades were stellar. Logically speaking, teachers usually grant a little extra grace to top students. She shouldn't have been completely ostracized, right? It all traced back to when Vance showed up at the school during her first grade, completely hammered, and threw a massive drunken tantrum. After that, the school basically washed their hands of her. They were terrified of crossing paths with Vance, that absolute degenerate. Later on, she didn't even make it to middle school. In the summer before 6th grade, she was rushed to the hospital covered head to toe in blood.